Hey everybody, Tom Carnell here, Carnell Knowledge, a show I do here on YouTube Monday and Fridays, wherein I review and recommend movies and books and records and all that kind of thing. If you don't know who I am, I was a buyer for Tower Records, Record Factory and Warehouse for almost 2 decades. I wrote and published Carpet Noctem magazine, which was a dark art journal back in the 90s. And then I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for about 15 years. And now I do books. I got a new book that's just out called Open Late, sort of a short story collection, kind of a portmanteau thing, and an ode to storytelling. The whole book is about telling stories to each other and that kind of thing. But I've been doing this show for a while now, and for some reason it seems like I'm getting throttled by YouTube for some reason. There's my view count is down and my interactions are down, and I can't figure out why. But that's neither here nor there. Today's show, I've got a whole batch of stuff that I want to talk with you about and share with you. I feel like it's my job to go and find the things that have either fallen by the wayside or slipped through the cracks. Because there's so much stuff coming out now that it's really difficult to be made aware of all of it. You know, when you consider films back in even the 20s and 30s, there are some that are really, really good, but we get inundated with what the newest and the latest and the greatest is, and it's easy to rush out to see something or to hear something or to read something just because it's new and sparkling, and most of it's not very good. But you know, we totally ignore things from the past, and so that's what this show is about. I'm trying not to be the first, with the first and the foremost with everything. I'm more looking at things in the past that were important, that are good, and that I think warrant a second look by y'all, and maybe it will enrich your lives and make you fun at parties. We've just had a pretty big weekend. My son is moving, so we're doing a lot of that stuff, and yeah, it's been good. I enjoy doing the show, and hopefully you are enjoying it as well. So if you are, please remember to like and subscribe and do all of those things that people keep talking about on here. I don't really get a lot of it, but there you go. So let's get to the movies of the day. The first thing is something I had seen before, and I was reminded of it having seen it come up on Tubi, because this is available on Tubi for free. It's a film from 1945. It's called Fog Island, directed by Terry O'Morse, who directed Godzilla, King of Monsters. And it stars George Zucco, who was in House of Frankenstein and The Mummy's Tomb. Lionel Atwell is in this. He was in Son of Frankenstein and Hound of the Baskervilles. Jerome Cowan was in this. And, of course, he was in The Maltese Falcon and Miracle on 34th Street. It has to do with an investor recently released from prison who invites a group of former business associates to a holiday at his island home, intending to exact revenge. Based on the play Angel Island, this was an enjoyable mystery thriller. Cheaply made, but that didn't keep it from still being engaging and pretty enjoyable. I mean, it's 1945, so everything is a little stagey. It's kind of a blend. Like, the elevator pitch on it for me would be Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None and The Cat and the Canary. Zuko and Atwill are rock solid in this. The others, they're competent, but they don't shine the way the two male actors do. That just, they just command a presence. The film is very atmospheric. The ending, I guess, a little rickety, but that's to be expected. The film is relatively short. It's like 72 minutes long. It given everything that it has going for it, the director and the 2 stars, it doesn't quite live up to that pedigree. Things get a little Scooby-Doo towards the end. But I do recommend it for fans of closed environment murder mysteries and early cinematic character actors. What do I mean by closed environment? George Romero talked a lot about, like in Night of the Living Dead, the idea was to take a group of disparate characters, lock them into a closed space, and then just watch the characters sort of ricochet off of each other. And this film does that in spades. In the description of this video, I've included a link to the full movie, so you don't have to chase it around, but it is available on Tubi, or you can click on the link and it'll take you to a YouTube page of that entire film. Up next, I mentioned Portmanteau in the description of my own book, Open Late. This is a film from 1967 called Torture Garden. The next film is from 1967 called Torture Garden. It's a Portmanteau film that not a lot of people talk about. They'll talk about Tales, the original Tales from the Crypt, the Amicus film, and this is an Amicus film. But it has to do with a Portmanteau. If you're not familiar, is there's a story, and then within the story there are mini stories that each character tells. It usually has to do with the Amicus films. Anyway, it has to do with their demise, and so this isn't too far from that. It's directed by the great Freddie Francis, who did Evil of Frankenstein and Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. Jack Palance is in this. Peter Cushing is in this. Burgess Meredith is in this. It's an anthology of 4 short stories about people who visit Dr. Diablo's fairground haunted house attraction show. And then each tells their story, and then we get the big punch at the end. All of the stories were written by Robert Bloch, who did Psycho. It was released on a double bill initially with Joan Crawford's Trog. Freddie Francis directed both of them, so that made that made sense to somebody in marketing. It does have a reputation as being the worst Amicus Portmanteau film, but I still found it completely enjoyable. It knows what it is. Amicus by 1967, had sort of, their rhythm down, and yeah, I thought it was fun. You will see the finale coming a mile away. I mean, I've already given it away in a sort of sidelong manner. But the stories are really very much in the pulp tradition. I think the film is worth seeing. The highlight, though, is the Jack Palance, Peter Cushing story. I recommend it for Amicus aficionados, Portmanteau freaks like me, and British horror buffs. I've included a link to the trailer in the description. And again, you can find this on Tubi. Up next, another Amicus film. I went on a sort of a rager on a bunch of Amicus films. And this is also a Portmanteau film. It's called Asylum. It's from 1972. Roy Ward Baker directed it. He did Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, Scars of Dracula, and the great The Vampire Lovers. It stars Barbara Perkins, who was in Valley of the Dolls. Richard Todd, who's in The Longest Day. Sylvia Sims is in this, if that name rings any bells with any of you. It has to do with a psychiatrist who's going to a mental institution for a job interview. And part of the interview is that the director tells him that I want you to interview a number of people, and I want you to tell me who's a patient and who is like kind of a ringer, who's in there to sort of muddy the waters there. The stories were also written by Robert Bloch, who's on kind of a tear there. Produced by Milton Zubotsky, whose name is legendary in British filmmaking. This is not my favorite Amicus film, but again, I still found it completely enjoyable. I love Portmanteau films, and I will watch pretty much any of them. Yeah, in this, the acting is solid. It's very British. I'm not going to lie there. Everything sort of rings of Britain. The resolution of this film did make me smile. I didn't see it coming, and that's always a plus. But I recommend it for Portmanteau lovers and Amicus completists. Up next, in a total shift of gears, I have talked about in the past third world cannibal films, and things like Cannibal Holocaust and Jungle Holocaust, and they're all kind of, there's a rhythm to them, of you know, a bunch of white people lacking self-awareness go into the jungle for whatever reason. Slave of the Cannibal God was them trying to find Ursula Andress's husband. So, but they go in there and they usually are boorish and horrible, and they treat the natives poorly, and the natives exact their revenge. This film that I want to talk about now is from 1981. The original title is Cannibal FEROX. It was marketed at one point under a really lurid title called Make Them Die Slowly. But it's directed by Umberto Lenzi, who had set aside things, his love of Policia Tesci's and Giallo, to do this because it was a big thing around the late 70s, early 80s. Stars Giovanni Lombardi Rodici, who is Bob in Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead, and he was in Michel Soavi's The Sect, The Church. Lorraine de Sal is in this. Daniela Mattei is in this. It has to do with three friends who embark on a trip to the Amazon jungle to disprove cannibalism when they meet a pair of fugitive drug smugglers forcing a vicious cannibal tribe to harvest cocaine. Lenzi, you know, it's easy to dismiss this guy as just a schlock director, but he can do so much, and it's all pretty effortless. I'll warn you now, this is a third world cannibal film, one of the better of the subgenre, but it's a gore fest, I'll tell you that. It's exactly, based on the title, it's exactly what you think it is. There are some trigger warnings here. Some animals are killed pretty graphically. There's someone's backing up. There's as I recall, there's a monkey that gets, hold on about that. There is a trigger warning for some animals that are killed. There's a monkey that gets eaten by a snake, and I want to say a lizard is disemboweled and that kind of thing. And I don't know why they felt compelled to include that kind of thing in these movies. I mean, the effects are gross enough, but yeah, maybe it was for controversy's sake. I'm not really sure. This is a film much like Cannibal Holocaust that will offend many of you, but I think it's important because third world cannibal films are sort of a cornerstone of grindhouse cinema, and this is one of the, like I say, one of the better ones. Well worth checking out. You might want to set the popcorn aside. But I do recommend it for people who like gore films and lovers of that kind of grindhouse sleaze. It's something. There's a lot to like about this film. There's a lot to be repulsed by. But again, they're an important part of grindhouse cinema, and to not talk about them seems to be a disservice. So, moving on to the next film. 1999, The Ninth Gate, directed by Roman Polanski, stars Johnny Depp, Frank Langella, and Lena Olin. Has to do with an unscrupulous book broker who finds himself involved in paranormal happenings when he is hired to authenticate the last of 3 copies of text that is said to be capable of summoning Satan. It's another cult film, another sort of pseudo-horror film by Polanski. The story feels pretty pulpy to me, from everything from the man in search of rare books to him finding it, to the other collectors he runs into, and all of the things that ensue from there. The film is aggressively ambiguous, but it tries to, but it remains fun to try and discern what it means. It never sort of lays out everything for you. It leaves you to interpret what's going on and who's evil and who's not evil and all that kind of thing. It's well acted and directed, but it's purposefully abstruse. An intriguing, albeit mystifying film. Recommended for lovers of satanic flicks with head-scratching endings. Depp is great in this, and Polanski does a fine job in directing it. Langella is really creepy. Yeah, it's one of those films that a lot of people will nod their heads about when it comes up, but very few people that I find have seen it, and they should. They should absolutely see it. It is well worth checking out. Yeah, so The Ninth Gate, 1999. As I recall, this also was available on Tubi. So let's go from there to our book of the show. Recently, I've been scouring a lot of like library sales, and this weekend we spent a lot of time running around at garage sales. And at the local library, the main branch, they had a sale recently, and I picked up a bunch of hard case crime novels and books. There was one called Little Girl Lost. It's from 2004. The stated author is Richard Aleas, and I later learned it is I should have known with the last name Aleas. It's a pseudonym for hard case crime founder Charles Arday. It's about a man who is a detective, and he finds, looking through the paper one day, he finds that a local stripper in New York, so a stripper has been murdered on the roof of the strip club where she works, and he recognizes the picture as his girlfriend from high school. And she was supposedly had gone off to New Mexico to become an ophthalmologist, but here she is dead on a rooftop of a strip club. And he dives in trying to find like what happened. How did she go from leaving to go to ophthalmologist school and ending up again working at a strip club and being murdered with 2 shots to the back of the head. Interesting, I read that Arday, the author here, wrote the novelization for the Shane Black flick The Nice Guys, which now I wasn't interested in reading it, but now knowing it is by him, I'll probably look for it. I found this to be an engaging mystery that deals with love and loss, nostalgia and murder. Some of the writing is really, really great. I am just being interrupted left and right here. It's very well written. It's very well plotted. There are moments where he stumbles prose-wise, and he mixes his metaphors a lot. But the story gets by, the generator of the story gets by on that feeling of nostalgia and mystery of, how did this happen and that kind of thing. Full of twists and turns. I found it to be styling and engaging. The ending is well hidden, but once you get there, you're going to slap yourself in the forehead and say, why didn't I see that coming? I was surprised. I liked it enough to recommend it to my wife, who's reading it now, and she's stumbling across sort of the same things that I did. I do recommend it, as I recommend most of the hard case crime books. I think they do a wonderful job. The presentation is beautiful, and the stories in the books are great. You can get some things there that are up till now impossible to get, but this one, it's a sort of a qualified recommendation. I do like the way the man writes. I just added his another book, a sequel to this, to my wish list on Amazon, so I'll be picking that up at some point. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Again, Richard Aleas' Little Girl Lost. Moving on to some records. This is a mixed bag this time. So here we go. The first record, 1981. The artist's name is Ken Ramm. He was a Canadian guitarist, songwriter, and producer. The album is called Dragon, and I had a tough time. I mean, I found it on Spotify, but finding any other information about it was pretty tough. I did learn that the artist was never paid when it was initially released on Trend Records. The music itself is kind of jazz fusion with a little rock thrown in. I guess Ken Ram had some kind of relationship with the band FM, and a few of their members appears on this record. Ram went on to head the band Euphoria. Reportedly a private release. It is, like I say, it is available on Spotify. It reminded me of FM. It reminded me of Eddie Jobson from UK and multiple other bands. And it kind of had a little Dixie Dregs in it. Not as proficient, but it had that feel to it. I very much enjoyed Dragon. I think Ken Ram could have easily had a career. I don't know what happened with this Trend Records, but it was tough. Just getting the information that I just went over. It was tough to find any of that, and let alone find in the playlist. In the description of the video, I have included playlists to all of the records, and you can go there and click on it and listen for yourself. But even that was a little bit of a chore to try to find. So there we go. Up next, 2002. This is a good one. This is a really good one. The band is called Kick the Cat. The album is called Weirdo. Kick the Cat are an instrumental jazz fusion prog band. They are known for chops, busting musicianship, funky grooves, and cerebral improvisations. Very genre bending. While rooted in jazz fusion, they show an unpredictable mix of styles, everything from dubstep to country to R&B to Brazilian rhythms. The playing is virtuosic. Yeah, I think that's the word. And there's a level of humor to it that, I mean, come on, they named their band Kick the Cat. They have several records out, blistering guitar, dynamic keyboards, funky bass, and the drummer is a real monster. Reminded me of things that everyone should recognize. Return to Forever, Weather Report, Chick Corea's Electric Band, Panzer Ballet, Little King Crimson, A Little Snarky Puppy. Yeah, they were a great band. I very much enjoyed the record, again, called Weirdo. They've got a bunch of albums, so you can check all those out elsewhere. And while we're checking out, I want to say I heard about it on Ken Golden's show from Laser's Edge. But yeah, fine stuff, fine stuff. Moving on to the next record, 2006. The band is called Eclat, E-C-L-A-T. The album is called La Cri de la Terre. They are a French progressive rock band. The music is heavy, energetic, and a blend of symphonic rock and jazz fusion. Flamboyant guitar, lively keyboards, and a dynamic rhythm section. While largely a rock band, their sound is mellow with placid moments of acoustic guitar, piano, and violin. It reminded me of Cornerstone, Narrow Pass, Caliban, and the great Minimum Vital. I enjoyed this record. I very much enjoyed this record. I listen to a lot of music throughout my day. I maybe 20 records a day, give or take. And I only bring you 5 every show. So there's a lot of stuff that I listen to that I don't like. So the things that I did like usually make it onto the show. So the fact that it's on this list is a pretty solid recommendation. But yeah, I mean, give them again. Go to the playlist. You can listen for yourself. I think you'll really enjoy it. God knows I did. Let's see, 2 more. The band is called Greenhouse Ensemble. The album is called Mezzanine. It was released just recently in 2026. They are from Montreal. They blend contemporary jazz with Quebecian folk, post-rock, and ambient textures. There's very deep folk and Celtic ties here. The music is a lot of cinematic landscapes. I use a phrasing on this show a lot called, where I say it's another film score in search of a film. This reminded me of the Pat Metheny group. It reminded me of Octopus and the band's Cinematic Orchestra. It also reminded me of the Cocteau Twins. Great record, very chill, very good for like early morning, late at night when you're either winding up or winding down. Very enjoyable. Good stuff all the way around. I don't rightly remember whether or not they had more than this one record. I think they did, but this one really stood out. And then our last record is pure fun. You will all know, if you watch the show with any regularity, one of the things I absolutely love is Poliziotteschi films, Italian crime dramas. So there was a film called ITALO, a MANO, ARMATA, aka A Special Cop in Action. And the person that did the film score was legendary Italian composer Franco Micalizzi, who did a ton of stuff. He's best known for scoring Poliziotteschi's westerns and giallo. This is all music that is super funky with a big brass section, very punchy brass section. Think 1970s jazz funk, orchestral pop, and psychedelic lounge. Punchy drum breaks, driving bass, cinematic brass, and eerie ethereal vocalizations. It's very cool. It's very 70s, but as I like to say, and it's also very groovy. I love Poliziotteschi's. Part of the reason I love them is that their film scores are so great, and this is a fine example. Reminded me of a host of names that should sound familiar: Ennio Morricone, Nino Rota, Piero Piccioni, Piero Umiliani, Stelvio Cipriani, Riz Ortolani. Good stuff. You can go and to your streaming service, type in Franco Micalizzi, and you'll find all sorts of, like, it all kind of sounds like, like the music that they used to, if anyone remembers Beretta, it very much reminded me of like Beretta and like Keep Your Eye on the Sparrow, that kind of thing. Very enjoyable, very cool, and I think you'll dig it. And that's going to do it for this show. I'm trying to keep things moving. I don't want to linger too long on anything because I got a lot to get to. I already have a bunch of stuff happening for our next show. And I've been doing these posts daily, but I'm starting to believe that they might be adversely impacting my exposure and the aforementioned throttling. But yeah, good stuff. I will continue to post things on my Facebook page about what I'm watching and what I'm reading. I'm going through a lot of stuff right now. I'm reading a great Franco O'Rourke book. Yeah, so that's going to do it. I appreciate you all. I appreciate everyone that tunes in. We will we'll be back in a couple of days with a whole host of other stuff. And again, I'm sorry to keep repeating this, but hit that subscribe button. That really helps me out. If you've heard one thing or watched one thing here that you've enjoyed, do me a solid and hit that. So until next time, we'll see you soon.